Let me tell you something I have never said out loud like this before. Not on television, not on stage, not even to people who thought they knew me. Because some truths, they change how people look at you. And tonight, when I said these words, I felt it. The room stopped breathing. You see, people think they know my story. They think it's simple. They see the suits, the smile, the jokes, the success. They think success comes with noise, applause, confidence. But the real story happened in silence, long before anyone was calling my name. There was a time when I was sleeping in my car. No money, no backup plan. Just a dream that felt heavier every single night. And people ask me all the time, Steve, what kept you going? Steve, how did you not give up? I used to give them the clean answer, the motivational one. But tonight, I told the truth. I told them about the secret. Because the secret isn't what people expect. The secret isn't hustle. It isn't talent. It isn't confidence. Back then, I had none of that. What I had was fear. Real fear. The kind that wakes you up in the middle of the night with your heart racing and your mind screaming, what if this never works? What if you're not special? What if you die like this? I remember sitting in that car, hands on the steering wheel, staring at nothing. And I said something out loud. I said, God, if this is it, just let me know. Don't keep me guessing. That's when it happened. Not a voice, not a miracle, not a sign in the sky. Just a realization so heavy it almost crushed me. I realized something most people never do. And this is where the room went quiet. I realized that comfort is the most dangerous place a human being can live. Comfort kills dreams quietly. It doesn't scream at you. It doesn't scare you. It whispers. It tells you, stay where you are. Be grateful. Don't risk looking stupid. Don't disappoint people. And for years, I had been listening. I had been choosing comfort over calling, safety over purpose. And here's the part nobody likes to hear. God will let you be comfortable while you slowly abandon what you were created to do. He won't stop you. He won't force you. He'll just wait. That night, in that car, I understood something that changed my life forever. Your gift will never feel safe. Never. If what you're doing doesn't scare you, you're probably not walking in your purpose. And when I said that on stage tonight, nobody clapped, nobody moved, because everyone in that room knew exactly what I was talking about. They felt it. They knew there was something they had been avoiding, something they kept postponing, something they kept calling later. I looked at their faces, successful people, smiling people, people with money, titles, and applause. And I saw the same fear I had in that car, the fear of fully committing, the fear of going all in, the fear of finding out what happens if you actually try. So I leaned into the microphone and I said the sentence that made the silence even louder. I said, the greatest risk in life is not failing. It's succeeding at the wrong thing. And that's when I knew this secret wasn't just mine anymore. After I said that, I stepped back. I didn't rush to fill the silence, because silence tells the truth better than words ever can. You could hear people swallowing, shifting in their seats, avoiding eye contact. That's when I knew this secret had hit something real. You see, nobody teaches you this. They tell you to work hard. They tell you to stay positive. They tell you to believe in yourself. But they don't tell you what happens right before your life changes, right before the breakthrough. Everything inside you starts to resist. Your mind doesn't want growth. Your mind wants survival. It wants patterns, certainty, predictability. That's why most people stop right before the line. There is a line in life. On one side is who you've always been. On the other side is who you could become. And standing on that line feels unbearable, because crossing it means you can't go back. I told the audience something else that night. I said, the reason your life hasn't changed is because you keep negotiating with fear. We negotiate with fear every day. We say, I'll try when the timing is right. I'll start when I'm more ready. I'll risk it when I have a guarantee. But fear doesn't want guarantees. Fear wants control. And control is the enemy of destiny. When I was homeless, I had no control, no safety net, no reputation to protect. And that's why the dream could grow. But as soon as you get something to lose, fear shows up with a clipboard. It starts listing consequences. What will people say? What if you fail publicly? What if you disappoint your family? I looked around that room and I told them, you're not afraid of failure. You're afraid of being seen trying. That's the real secret. Most people would rather suffer quietly than risk looking foolish loudly. They would rather stay unhappy than be judged. And that realization is painful, because it means your biggest obstacle isn't money. It isn't time. It isn't opportunity. It's identity. Who you think you are is fighting who you're meant to become. And identity fights dirty. It reminds you of your past, your mistakes, your labels. It says, this is who you've always been. Who do you think you are to want more? I told them something personal then. I said, there were moments when I almost quit, not because I was tired, but because success was getting too close. Too close means accountability. Too close means responsibility. Too close means no more excuses. If you fail early, you get sympathy. If you fail after commitment, you get questions. So people delay commitment. They stay in the preparation phase forever. Planning, learning, waiting. But destiny doesn't respond to preparation. It responds to decision. And that's when I said the line that made someone in the front row cry. I said, your comfort zone will never ask for your life, but your calling will demand everything. I let that sit, because everyone knew what they were protecting. A job they hate, a relationship that drained them, a version of themselves that felt safe. And I said, you're not lazy, you're not broken, you're just standing at the edge, and you're afraid to jump. I paused, then I leaned forward, and I said, but here's what nobody tells you about the jump. Here's what nobody tells you about the jump. You don't feel brave when you do it. You feel stupid, unqualified, exposed, alone. That's the lie we've been sold. That courage feels powerful. It doesn't. Courage feels like standing in front of a room, hoping nobody sees how much your hands are shaking. When I finally committed to my dream, nothing magical happened. No doors flew open. No applause followed me. In fact, things got harder. I lost people, not because they hated me, but because my growth made them uncomfortable. Some friends stopped calling. Some family members started questioning. They said I was changing. And they were right, because staying the same was no longer an option. I told the audience something that night that shocked them. I said, if everyone supports your dream isn't big enough. Real purpose disrupts. It forces people to confront what they settled for, and not everyone is ready for that mirror. Here's another secret. When you jump, life doesn't catch you immediately. There's a fall, and in that fall, you start questioning everything. Your faith, your decisions, your worth. That's where most people turn back, not because they failed, but because it got quiet. No feedback, no validation, no signs, just you and the echo of your own doubt. I remember thinking, did I misunderstand my calling? Did I hear God wrong? Was this all just ego? And that's when I learned the most painful truth of all. Silence is part of the process. God doesn't shout directions every step of the way. Sometimes he watches to see if you'll keep walking without reassurance. I looked at the room and said, the absence of results doesn't mean the absence of purpose. Some people nodded, some people froze, because waiting without confirmation is where faith gets real. I told them about nights when I rehearsed jokes with nobody listening, about auditions where I wasn't chosen, about moments where I smiled in public and doubted in private. And then I said, here's how you know you're on the right path. The wrong path drains you even when things go well. The right path scares you but gives you energy. Purpose doesn't remove fear. It gives fear meaning, and meaning changes everything. I told them, you will never feel ready. Ready is a myth. Ready is what your fear demands before it allows you to move. But movement is what creates readiness. Then I shared the hidden part, the part that made the room feel heavier. I said, there were days I wanted to quit, not because it was hard, but because it was lonely. Loneliness is the tax of leadership. When you're ahead of your time, you're ahead of your support system. And I asked them a question I already knew the answer to. I asked, are you willing to be misunderstood for a season, to live understood for a lifetime? No one answered, because the answer isn't spoken, it's lived. I straightened up, took a breath, and said, but here's the part that changes everything. Here's the secret, the one I wish someone had told me earlier. Success does not change who you are. It reveals it. That sentence landed hard, because people believe success will fix them, heal them, make them whole. It won't. It just removes the excuses. Whatever you are on the way up, you become more of at the top. If you're insecure, success amplifies it. If you're angry, success gives it a microphone. If you're empty, success gives you a bigger stage to feel it on. I told them, that's why some of the most successful people you know are still running from silence, running from themselves. I had to face that truth. I had to ask myself, why do I want this? Who am I trying to prove wrong? What hole am I trying to fill? Because if you don't answer those questions, success will expose them for you. And it won't be gentle. I told them about moments when I achieved something big and felt nothing. No joy, no peace. Just the pressure to repeat it. That's when I realized achievement without alignment feels empty. You can win the game and still lose yourself. The room was completely silent now. I said, you don't need more motivation. You need more honesty. Honesty about why you stay. Honesty about why you leave. Honesty about who you're becoming. I told them another truth. God won't bless who you pretend to be. You can't fake alignment. You can't perform purpose. Purpose requires integrity when nobody is watching. And here's the part that made people shift uncomfortably. I said, if your dream costs you your values, it's too expensive. Some people chase success so hard, they abandon themselves along the way. They win applause and lose peace. I wasn't willing to do that anymore. I told them, I stopped chasing success when I realized peace was the real prize. Peace in my decisions. Peace in my relationships. Peace when I'm alone. That's when success stopped controlling me. And that's when it started flowing. Because when you're aligned, you don't chase, you attract. I looked around that room and said, your gift will make room for you, but your character decides how long you stay in the room. And finally, I said the sentence that turned the silence into something sacred. I said, the secret isn't how to get there. It's who you're willing to become on the way. I stepped back. I didn't smile, because I knew everyone in that room was having a conversation with themselves. That silence in the room, it wasn't awkward, it was honest. Because for the first time that night, no one was pretending. No masks, no titles, no applause. Just people sitting face to face with the truth they'd been avoiding. I broke the silence gently. I said, you don't need to leave here changed. You just need to leave here aware. Awareness is dangerous. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. You'll notice every time you choose comfort over growth. Every time you say one day instead of today. Every time you silence that quiet voice because it's inconvenient. I told them, your life is always speaking to you, through frustration, through boredom, through restlessness. Those aren't problems. Those are signals. Signals that something inside you wants more. Not more money, not more attention, more meaning. I said, you were not created to merely survive. You were created to contribute. And contribution always costs something. It costs certainty. It costs approval. It costs the version of you that people are used to. That's why so many people stay stuck. Not because they don't know what to do, but because they know what they'd have to give up. I looked at them and said, at some point, you have to decide which pain you're willing to live with. The pain of discipline or the pain of regret. Regret is quiet at first. It whispers. But over time, it gets loud. It shows up when you're alone, when the noise stops, when the distractions fade. I told them, you don't want to meet your potential one day and realize you were introduced too late. That line stayed in the air. Then I softened my voice. I said, here's the good news. You don't have to do everything today. You just have to stop lying to yourself. Stop saying you don't know when you do. Stop waiting for permission that will never come. Stop asking for signs when the desire itself is the sign. I said, God doesn't plant a calling in you without also planting the ability to grow into it. You don't start ready, you start willing. Willing to be bad at first. Willing to be judged. Willing to be uncomfortable. Because growth lives there, right at the edge of what you think you can handle. I took one last breath and said, one day, the room will go quiet again. Not because you revealed a secret, but because you became living proof that fear doesn't get the final word. And when that day comes, you won't need applause. You'll have peace. I stepped away from the microphone, and the room stayed silent. Not because they didn't know what to say, but because they finally knew what they needed to do.